Just like every year at the Pokémon World Championships, history was made in this year's VGC competition. No, there wasn't a champion as unlikely as Pachirisu this time around, even if Sejun Park did try his best to make it happen a second time. Luca Cherrybelly won with an expertly piloted team of known meta threats like Miraidon, Ogerpon Hearthflame, and Urshifu Rapid Strike. But there were still some big surprises appearing late in the competition. Gallade has been around since Generation 4, but prior to Worlds 2024, its best result at an official tournament was either a 7th place finish at the June 2023 Kaguya special event or an 83rd place finish 1 week later at the North American International Championships. Some people believed its newfound access to the sharpness ability could give it a chance against the meta's strongest Pokemon, but nobody had managed to turn it into a big result at a major international competition. That is, until Worlds. Diego Ferreira used it as a pivotal member of the hard Trick Room team he piloted all the way to 5th place. Sharpness gave both Sacred Sword and Psycho Cut some real oomph, but just as importantly, Gallade could also support the team with its combination of Wide Guard and Trick Room. Opponents facing down Gallade and Indeedee instantly found themselves in a bind. Can I safely click a spread move? Or will Gallade just nullify it with Wide Guard while Indeedee sets Trick Room? Can I safely double Indeedee? Or will Gallade just destroy me with a sharpness boosted attack or set Trick Room itself? It was powerful enough to power Diego to a 10-1 record in Swiss, tied for the top of the standings, and he earned another win in Top Cut before he bowed out in Top 8. Yuta Ishigaki brought Gallade's Future Paradox counterpart to new heights as well. Iron Valiant always had an intriguing combination of speed, power, and deep support move pool, but its best result prior to Worlds was a 13th place finish at Vancouver Regionals in 2023. Its lack of bulk and difficulty accessing the benefits of its Quark Drive ability combined to keep it from carving out much of a place in any of Scarlet and Violet's VGC metas. It found a perfect home on Yuta's team though. With booster energy increasing its speed, it could be faster than critical opponents like Miraidon and Calyrex Shadow Rider. Spirit Break would let it lower their special attack stats. Wide Guard could block moves like Astral Barrage and Discharge and allow its teammates like Urshifu, Landorus, and Calyrex Ice Rider to take big swings, or let Calyrex set up Trick Room. Encore could lock slower opponents, which was most of them, into harmless status moves, or dissuade opponents from trying those strategies altogether. And Coaching was the perfect support move for both Calyrex and Urshifu, hard hitters who became nearly unstoppable after the attack and defense boost from Coaching. It was a very specific fit for this team, but Yuta found a way to take this forgotten Paradox Pokemon and bring it all the way to 2nd on the biggest stage in Pokemon. These are just the latest additions to a proud history of players succeeding at the World Championships with forgotten or undervalued Pokemon, those most players thought the meta had left behind. Today, join us as we take you through some of the most surprising top 8 finishers in the Pokémon World Championships history, including a few who managed to take the entire tournament. The Limitless VGC database goes all the way back to 2010, which is where we'll start. Despite the fact that 14 World Championships have been played since, Lantern's 6th place finish at Worlds 2010 remains unique. According to Limitless, not only was that Lantern's only Worlds top 8 finish, but Lantern's only relevant placement ever. One critical thing to remember about the 2010 World Championships is that they were played on Pokémon Platinum and thus predated something most modern VGC players take for granted: Team Preview. Players now can use the team preview screen to take some time to consider a game plan when they see something unique like a Lantern or another wild pick from the 2010 Worlds, Parasect, which Hui Ha took to a 5th place. In 2010, players had to adapt on the fly when they saw one of these surprise picks take the field, and that could allow some unexpected strategies to do some serious work. Lantern's stats certainly aren't Worlds worthy, but one of its abilities turned out to be Volt Absorb. With this ability, Takeshi Morishima was able to claim his world spot through the last chance qualifier and then play his way into top 8. Volt Absorb helped to support the 2 electric weak Pokemon on his team, Togekiss and Kyogre, and it also gave him a switch into the Thunder Waves that were all over the place in VGC 2010. But it also enabled another strategy, Discharge spam from his Rotom Mow. In a metagame loaded with Kyogre, the ability to freely click Discharge was huge, and Lantern gave Takushi another option to put next to his Rotom Mow besides the more obvious Groudon. The combination of power creep making Lantern's already rough stat spread even worse and the advent of Team Preview killing the element of surprise has kept Lantern out of commission ever since. But it was a fantastic call from Takushi back in 2010. Lantern is one of a few Pokemon for whom its one World's Top 8 is its only ever recorded placing in the Limitless database, which also covers regionals, special events, and international championships. 2011's Worlds saw a few more out-of-nowhere picks reach the top 8. Our very own WolfeyGlick provided one, Embor. We'll let him tell you what that was all about.
Hey, it's me. I heard that you want to know about Embor and why I used it to get top 8 at the 2011 World Championships. Well, basically, my team was a hard Trick Room team. I really wanted Trick Room to be up, and if it didn't go up, I was going to be in a lot of trouble. One of the Pokemon that gave me the most issues in that format was Amoonguss, who was capable of not only underspeeding a lot of my Trick Room Pokemon, but also could put everything to sleep. The problem was, in the 2011 rule set, there weren't very many Pokemon that could easily get rid of Amoonguss. Amoonguss is just so naturally tanky, and there just weren't that many Pokemon that were even legal at the time. So the options for Pokemon that could remove Amoonguss in a single hit were a little bit limited. Embor was slow enough that I could slot it in for one of my main Trick Room attackers, but it also was strong enough that I could pick up a KO on Amoonguss in a single hit. I ran Lumberry Embor because I didn't need an item to boost its damage since it was already strong enough. And that way I'd have some insurance if for some reason the Amoonguss was really fast, or if Trick Room went up before I could take it out.
The 2011 World Championships were played with one of the smallest Pokédexes ever, with only the Unova Pokémon available to trainers. That allowed a couple of other unique picks to sneak their way into this top 8. 5th place finisher Daniel Nolan had 5 meta picks on his team. Tornadus, Terrakion, Amoonguss, Crocodile, and Jellicent were all on at least 2 other top 8 squads. But then there was this thing. 2011 was the era of the gems, items that gave a one-time boost to attacks of a specific type. With its 125 base special attack stat, Behem could already hit pretty hard. But Daniel's Behem was a monster, stacking that with a combination of same type attack bonuses, Psychic Gem's 1.5 times boost, and the 1.3 times boost of its analytic ability, which increases the power of moves used after all other Pokemon have taken their turn. With just 40 base speed, Behem was often going last when used outside of Trick Room. Daniel was a big gem user. In a 2015 article he wrote for Nugget Bridge, he lamented their exit from the Generation 6 metagame and said Behem was the biggest sign of his addiction to gems. With Psychic Gem no longer an option, Behem has unsurprisingly been left to the wayside. 3rd place finisher Macoil Samurott also hasn't been seen before or since, but information about this team is extremely limited, and there's no footage of it actually playing at Worlds. Samurott was one of the stronger water-type special attackers in the limited Unova decks, but most players chose to go with Jellicent for its additional ghost typing, access to Water Spout, and ability to control speed with Trick Room. Torrent-boosted Hydro Pump could hit like a fire truck though, and didn't rely on staying healthy like Jellicent's Water Spout. And Samurott had solid coverage options like Air Slash and Ice Beam to hit a wide variety of foes. Unfortunately, the true sauce here has been lost to time, but it says something that Matt was able to pilot this Pokemon to top 4 and its only real appearance on VGC's biggest stage. We'll come back to VGC 2011 later, but for now, let's move ahead a couple of years. Sejun Park is known as one of the most creative team builders of all time for a reason, and it's not just because of Pachirisu. In 2013, he found success with another surprise follow-me user, Magmar, who was only able to access the move after it was purified from Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Like the Pachirisu Sejun would go on to use to win in 2014, Magmar had an ability that enhanced its utility as a follow-me user. Flame Body has a 30% chance of burning any opponent that hits it with a contact move, which conveniently is a lot of physical attacks. The fact that it would force any physical attacker to gamble anytime it swung was already a big deal, but with Eviolite, Magmar could become an absolute tank, allowing Sejun to get Trick Room up and sweep with massive attacks like Jellicent's Water Spout and Marowak's Thick Club boosted Bone Meringue. Sejun's 5th place finish at 2013 Worlds would be Magmar's only major result until very recently. When Follow Me was added to Magmar's moveset as an egg move in Generation 9, interest in this strategy was rekindled, and Magmar actually did make 3-day 2s this season, spearheaded by Michael Zhang's top 32 placement at Portland. It might not threaten for a World Championship anytime soon, but it's an impressive resurgence from a Pokemon that had been basically written off for a decade. Marowak also belongs to this list, assuming you don't group it with its Alolan form. Alolan Marowak saw great success in Generation 7, including placing 1st and 3rd at Worlds 2017. Despite having the exact same stat spread as Marowak's Kanto form, it benefited greatly from a nuke type combination while still getting an attack boost from the Thick Club item and an electric immunity from its Lightning Rod ability. But the original Marowak was particularly well suited for the 2013 Worlds meta. It hit at least 2 Pokemon on every other top 8 team for super effective damage with either Bone Meringue, Rock Slide, or Fire Punch, and it had at least one option to hit literally every other Pokemon on these teams for neutral damage. Now, onto the few Pokemon who have managed to win Worlds on the one and only occasion in which they've reached top 8. The little Pachirisu that could. The adorable star of Sejun Park's 2014 World Championship team is easily the most well-known of these one-hit wonder world champions. Like Lantern, it was there primarily for its Volt Absorb ability, but Pachirisu had a few tools that made it an even better supporter. Primarily, its rare access to the redirection move Follow Me. But a support Pokemon is only as good as what it's supporting. In this case, the centerpiece of Sejun's team, his Dragon Dance Mega Gyarados. Mega Gyarados wasn't a popular pick at Worlds for two big reasons. It wasn't Mega Kangaskhan or Mega Mawile. Mega Kangaskhan offered an unparalleled combination of offense and support thanks to its parental bond ability and its access to Fake Out. Mega Mawile had the attack doubling ability Huge Power, meaning it didn't need to set up a Dragon Dance to threaten to sweep opponents. Only one other player in the top 16 brought Mega Gyarados, Ben Kiriakou. Ben's Manectric played a similar redirection role as Sejun's Pachirisu. Both players saw the same thing. If you could protect Mega Gyarados while it boosted its already ludicrous 155 attack stat, it would win games for you. Sejun called Mega Gyarados the ace of his team in his post-Worlds team report. Watch the old set from his run and you'll understand exactly why. While he had other offensive threats like Garchomp and Scarf Gardevoir, his game plan revolved around getting Mega Gyarados into a game-winning position. Every other Pokemon on his team had a way to assist with that goal. Pachirisu shut down electric attacks, and with full physical defense investment, it was way more of a tank than this little squirrel looks like it should be. Talonflame could set Tailwind, pressure with priority Brave Birds, and surprise priority attackers with Quick Guard. Gothitelle could trap favorable matchups and spam annoying status moves. He also had Scarf Gardevoir, a popular option early in the season that didn't have much of a presence at Worlds. The only other Gardevoir player in the top 16 was 16th place finisher Yuichi Sasaki. But it gave Sejun some much needed offense into the dragons running amok in the meta, especially the levitating Hydreigon, which Gyarados couldn't threaten with Waterfall or Earthquake, but was decimated by a single Gardevoir Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam. Pachirisu will almost certainly remain the least likely world champion Pokemon for as long as we play this game. But Sejun's Gyarados and Gardevoir picks also stand out in Worlds history. It's not just Gyarados' Mega Form that was a rare pick for Worlds. Despite the fact that Gyarados had been at least pretty good for most of VGC history, the best Worlds finish for its regular form was Marco Silva's 11th place finish from last year, and that was just its 4th top 16 finish ever. Meanwhile, Gardevoir hasn't had any notable results at Worlds since Sejun took it to the top. Sejun's creativity went far beyond the adorable little guy who understandably stole the spotlight in 2014.
Pachirisu is not going to do any of that. It's going right on the offensive. Super Fang going to take away half of Bo Rotom's health. Dragon Claw right back after a critical hit! A critical hit and Sejun Park takes down Bo Rotom, and Sejun Park is your 2014 Pokémon World Video Game Champion in the Masters Division.
Since then, only one Pokemon has won the World Championship in its one and only top 8 appearance. And it's technically not even a Pokemon. It's Stakataka, the slowest of the Ultra Beasts. Stakataka has extreme strengths, ridiculous physical defense, a good attack stat, 2 strong offensive types, and the ability to take advantage of its absurdly low speed stat by setting Trick Room for itself. But those were offset by some extreme weaknesses. Primarily, its 4 times weakness to both fighting and ground, 2 very common attacking types. Stakataka had strong performances here and there throughout VGC 2018 and the early parts of VGC 2019, but it really took off in the lead up to Worlds 2019. This was a restricted format, and players discovered that it was a tremendous Trick Room partner for some of the slower legendaries after a few big tournament wins, including one by our own James Beck at the Daytona Regionals. A lot of players saw this and brought Stakataka to Worlds, pairing it most often with Incineroar, Primal Groudon, and one of either Duskmane or Dawnwing's Necrozma. WolfeyGlick and Aaron Trailer tried to make it work with Mega Rayquaza and Snorlax, but they were stopped in top 32 and top 16 respectively. Positioning Stakataka in a meta that knew it had to be prepared for its antics turned out to be quite difficult. And that's what makes Naoto Mitsubichi's run in the World Championship with Stakataka so impressive. His Stakataka was particularly offensive. While it had the ability to set its own Trick Room, Naoto said in his team report that this Stakataka was designed more to take advantage of a Trick Room set by Lunala. This was an offensive monster, with the ability to KO an Incineroar through Intimidate with the Rock Z move Continental Crush. Naoto said he specifically chose Stone Edge over the more common Rock Slide for this calc. Stakataka is on this list partially because it's only been in generations 7 and 8. and Generation 8 lost out on 2 World Championships in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic. It got some use in the Players' Cup tournaments that served as a replacement to the in-person tournament in those years, and it had the potential to make a similar run to Naoto's in 2019 prior to the introduction of restricted formats. Rare Zacian and its Sacred Swords scared it away. Nonetheless, Naoto remains the only one to bring it to a World's Top 8, and he took it all the way to the championship. There's one last Pokemon to talk about here, one that's had a much longer World's drought than Stakataka. It's even had a longer World's drought than Pachirisu and Gardevoir. In 2011, Rizzo was playing to defend his 2010 World Championship. With the target fully on his back in 2011, he knew he had to find new ways to keep competitors guessing. So Ray dug deeper into the Unova Pokedex than any of his fellow competitors and found something nobody was ready to counter.
Can you give us a specific example? Was there one of the members of your team you wanted to call out?
Gothitelle and Escavalier were definitely MVPs of the team.
You can argue with Ray about that pronunciation if you really want to, but just know he'll be ready for you. Anyway, Ray's picks were especially unique in the 2011 metagame, where there were about 12 Pokemon actually considered viable. This wasn't the Gothitelle we know today, a huge threat thanks to its Shadow Tag ability. This one only had access to Frisk, and Ray mostly brought it to use Safeguard faster than Amoonguss could use Spore. This Escavalier also didn't have access to its hidden ability Overcoat, which its trainers have usually chosen in its few placements in the past 12 years. But that was okay with Ray, because in this meta, fire types were all but non-existent. Fire is Escavalier's only weakness, and Ray saw that he could leverage Escavalier's big attack stat despite its dreadful speed. It also had surprisingly good coverage. Iron Head and Megahorn gave it strong stab options. It had Aerial Ace to deal with Amoonguss, and Return, a safely spammable move in a meta lacking ghost types outside of Jellicent. In an interview with Aaron Zhang not long after 2011 Worlds, Ray said that he was inspired to use Escavalier in part by WolfeyGlick. Wolf brought the same unique picks to DC Regionals in 2011 that led some to believe he got lucky with his win there. But his picks like Musharna and Taunt Hydreigon, combined with his incredible ability to predict his opponents, helped push Ray to make his own unique picks, knowing he'd need something to keep Wolf on his toes should they match up at Worlds. It worked! But in another interview with Games Radar, Ray called Wolf's team, the Emboar team he talked about earlier, the hardest matchup he faced all tournament. Unfortunately, footage of 2011 Worlds is very hard to find, with handheld recordings of the final set the only videos available on YouTube. Escavalier didn't come to any of the 3 games in that set that won him the championship, but Ray says it was an MVP. And are you really going to argue with the man who had just won 2 World Championships and was about to win a 3rd? In that same interview with Games Radar, Ray was asked what advice he would give to any potential future opponents. His answer? I would say to not be afraid of using something non-standard if it helps to counter a lot of the common Pokemon strategies. I've seen other people have success using unexpected Pokemon as well. It might not be as easy as Ray made it look, but history backs him up. From Takushi Morishima's Lantern to Yuta Ishigaki's Iron Valiant and Diego Ferreira's Gallade, players have been making waves at Worlds with their unconventional picks. Which players in Pokemon do you think it will be next year?